The council chamber floated in the darkness of space like a giant crystal. Inside, representatives from 300 different species sat in their designated areas. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had scales, others had fur or skin or something else entirely. They all gathered here to talk about the future of the galaxy. Ambassador Tae-sung sat in the human section, a small area compared to the older, more established species. He wore a simple dark suit and watched the proceedings with calm eyes. Next to him, Ji-woo adjusted her tablet, recording everything that happened. She was younger than the ambassador, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. At the center of the chamber, War Marshal Velroth stood on his speaking platform. He was massive, with a thick exoskeleton that gleamed under the lights. His species, the Carthene, had won many battles across the galaxy. Everyone knew their reputation. The Vrask swarm has consumed 12 systems in the past cycle, Velroth announced, his voice booming through translators. They do not negotiate. They do not stop. They only consume and multiply. Murmurs filled the chamber. The Vrask were a nightmare that kept growing. They moved like locusts, stripping planets bare and using the resources to build more ships, more soldiers, more of themselves. A crystalline being named Quinn 4 rose from its seat. Light refracted through its body, creating small rainbows on the floor. "What are our current defensive capabilities?" it asked, its voice like wind chimes. Velroth gestured and holographic displays appeared above the chamber floor. They showed fleet positions, weapon statistics, and battle readiness reports. "The Carthene Third Fleet stands ready. We have destroyed Vrask forces in 4 engagements with minimal losses." Other species began speaking up, each boasting about their military strength. The reptilian Drakmir showed videos of their plasma cannons cutting through Vrask bioships. The aquatic Tidians demonstrated their sonic weapons that could shatter enemy hulls. One by one, species presented their capabilities. Tae-sung remained silent. Ji-woo noticed several other ambassadors glancing toward the human section, waiting. Finally, Velroth turned his compound eyes toward Tae-sung. "And what of humanity? You have been part of this council for 15 cycles, yet you never share your military data. You never participate in war games. You never even tell us how many ships you have." The chamber fell quiet. Everyone looked at the humans. Tae-sung stood slowly. He was not a tall man, and compared to many species in the chamber, he looked almost fragile. "We appreciate the Council's efforts to coordinate defense," he said calmly. "However, human military protocols prevent us from sharing detailed combat information with external parties." "Protocols?" Velroth's voice carried mockery. "Or do you simply have nothing to share? Perhaps humanity is too weak to contribute to galactic defense." Ji-woo's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Tae-sung's expression never changed. "We have our capabilities," Tae-sung replied. "We simply choose to keep them private." "Private?" Velroth repeated. "How convenient. While real warriors prepare to defend the galaxy, humans hide behind privacy protocols." Quinn 4 spoke up, its voice cutting through the tension. "Perhaps there are legitimate reasons for such discretion. Not all species need to display their strength openly. Or perhaps they have no strength to display," another voice called out. Several species made sounds that their translators interpreted as agreement or laughter. Tae-sung sat down. The vote was called shortly after. The council would form a defensive coalition. Species would contribute ships, weapons, and soldiers to face the Vrask threat together. When the vote reached the human delegation, Tae-sung pressed a single button. "Abstain," the system announced. More murmurs filled the chamber. Velroth made a clicking sound of disgust. "However," Tae-sung added, "humanity will send observer vessels to monitor the coalition's efforts. We will provide tactical analysis if requested." "Observers?" Velroth said flatly. "How generous." The meeting ended soon after. As species filed out of the chamber, Ji-woo gathered her materials. She noticed Quinn 4 approaching their section. "Ambassador Tae-sung, Officer Ji-woo," the crystalline being said. "May I speak with you briefly?" Tae-sung nodded. "Of course." They moved to a quieter corridor outside the main chamber. Quinn 4's form shifted slightly, colors moving through its body like thoughts made visible. "I mean no offense," Quinn 4 said, "but I am curious. Your species achieved faster than light travel only 200 cycles ago. You joined the Council 15 cycles ago. In all that time, no one has seen human military forces in action. No one knows your capabilities. Why such secrecy? Jiwoo glanced at Tae-sung. The ambassador considered the question carefully. My species has a long history, he finally said. Much of that history involves conflict. We learned many things during those times. Some of those things are better kept private. You fear judgment? Quinn-4 asked. We fear misunderstanding, Tae-sung replied. But surely in the face of extinction from the Vrask, sharing knowledge would benefit everyone. Tae-sung smiled, but it was a sad expression. Quinn-4, has your species ever fought a war? The crystalline being was silent for a moment. No. We have had disagreements, but we resolve them through resonance meditation. We have never engaged in organized violence. Then you are fortunate, Tae-sung said, and you would not understand our methods even if we explained them. I could try, Quinn-4 offered. Jiwoo spoke up for the first time. With respect, some doors are closed for good reasons. What's behind them isn't meant to be seen. Quinn-4 studied them both. Light patterns move through its body faster now, a sign of intense thought. You are protecting us, it said slowly. Not just from the Vrask, from yourselves. Tae-sung neither confirmed nor denied this. We will send our observer ships. If the coalition needs tactical advice, we will provide it. That is all we can offer. And if the Vrask come to human space? Quinn-4 asked. They won't, Jiwoo said with complete certainty. We've made sure of that. How? Tae-sung placed a hand on Jiwoo's shoulder. That falls under privacy protocols. Good day, Quinn-4. We wish the coalition success in the coming battles. They left the crystalline being standing in the corridor, light dancing through its body as it pondered the strange, silent species that refused to show their teeth. Back in their private quarters on the station, Jiwoo finally let her frustration show. They think we're cowards. Let them think that, Tae-sung said, pouring himself water. It's better than the alternative, is it? Jiwoo pulled up her tablet, showing classified files. We have weapons that could end this Vrask threat in weeks. We have tactics that would terrify every species in that chamber. Tae-sung interrupted. Jiwoo, you're young. You didn't see what happened when we first made contact with other species, the ones who saw our historical databases, the ones who accessed our military archives before we locked them down. He paused. Some of them stopped talking to us entirely. Others proposed quarantining our entire species. That was different. They didn't understand context, and they still wouldn't. Tae-sung sat down heavily. We are the only species in this galaxy that evolved through constant warfare. Every other species here had predators, yes, but they never fought themselves the way we did. They don't have words for concepts like total war or mutually assured destruction. They can't comprehend what we're capable of. Jiwoo was quiet for a moment. What if the Vrask win? What if the coalition falls? Then we'll reconsider our position, Tae-sung said. But until then, we stay silent. We watch, we protect our borders, and we pray that no one ever gives us a reason to show them what human warfare really looks like. Outside their window, stars burned in the darkness. Somewhere out there, the Vrask were coming, and somewhere else, human ships watched and waited in silence. The bridge of the quiet dawn was dim and peaceful. Commander Hyunwoo preferred it that way. Too much light distracted from the displays showing nearby space. He sat in his command chair, watching 3 different star systems on the main screen. In each one, the coalition fleet was preparing for battle. Contact in 30 minutes, Da-eun reported from her tactical station. She was focused on her screens, analyzing data streams from coalition ships. The Vrask are coming in fast. Bigger force than expected, Hyunwoo nodded. The quiet dawn hung at the edge of the battle zone, far enough to be safe but close enough to observe everything. It was their job to watch and record. Nothing more. All coalition ships reporting ready, Da-eun continued. Fleet Admiral Rickstar is commanding from the Stellar Fang. War Marshal Velroth is leading the Carthian forces. Has Velroth acknowledged our presence? Hyunwoo asked. No, sir. He's ignoring all our communications. Hyunwoo smiled slightly. Can't say I'm surprised. The coalition fleet was impressive by galactic standards. Over 300 ships from 20 different species, all armed with their best weapons. Energy cannons that could melt asteroids, missile systems that tracked targets across millions of kilometers, point defense grids that could intercept thousands of projectiles. Hyunwoo had read the tactical briefings. The coalition expected victory. They had numbers, firepower, and coordination. On paper, they should win easily. On the screen, space rippled. The Vrask were arriving. They came through dimensional tiers, hundreds of bioships pouring into normal space like insects from a disturbed nest. The ships were alive, grown rather than built. They pulsed with organic light and moved with unsettling purpose. "First wave is engaging," Diane said. "Coalition forces opening fire." The battle began. Energy beams crossed the darkness, striking Vrask ships. Some exploded in bursts of organic matter. Others absorbed the hits and kept coming. The Coalition's missiles launched in massive salvos, creating a wall of explosions between the two fleets. It looked effective. Dozens of Vrask ships died in the first minutes. "They're doing well," one of the junior officers commented. Hyunwoo said nothing. He watched the patterns. The way the Vrask moved, the way they reacted to Coalition tactics. He had seen this before, in simulation and historical records. The Vrask were learning. "Second wave arriving," Dawn announced. Then her voice changed. "Third wave arriving. Fourth wave." "Sir, they're not stopping." The dimensional tiers kept opening. More and more Vrask ships poured through. The Coalition had destroyed hundreds already, but thousands were taking their place. "They're adapting," Daun said, highlighting patterns on her display. "See how the new arrivals are moving? They're avoiding the areas where previous ships were destroyed. They're learning from losses in real time." The Coalition fleet's neat formations began to break apart. Ships scattered to avoid being overwhelmed. The Vrask surrounded isolated vessels, tearing them apart with bioweapons and acidic projectiles. Hyunwoo leaned forward. "Daun, can you identify command nodes in the Vrask formation?" Her fingers moved across her controls. "Yes, sir. I'm seeing coordination patterns. There are 7 large bioships in the center of each swarm group. They're directing the smaller units. Send that information to Fleet Admiral Rixtar." Daun worked her console. After a moment, she looked up. "No response, sir. They're too busy with the battle." On screen, a Coalition cruiser exploded. Then another. The Vrask were pressing their advantage, their numbers growing while Coalition forces dwindled. "Velroth's ship is damaged," Daun reported. "He's falling back. Multiple Coalition vessels are breaking formation." Hyunwoo opened a direct channel to Rixtar's flagship. "Fleet Admiral, this is Commander Hyunwoo of the Quiet Dawn. We've identified Vrask command nodes. If you can concentrate fire on the 7 large bioships at coordinates, human ship, clear this channel." Velroth's voice cut in. "We don't need your observations." The channel closed. Hyunwoo sat back. He looked at Daun, who was clearly frustrated. "Note the time in our attempt to assist. Continue recording." "Sir, they're going to lose if they don't adapt," Daun said. "Yes," Hyunwoo agreed quietly. "They are." The battle lasted 6 more hours. In the end, the Coalition fleet retreated from all 3 systems. They left behind wreckage and bodies. The casualty reports would list thousands dead. 40% of the Coalition fleet was destroyed or too damaged to fight. The Vrask took the systems and immediately began consuming every resource they found. Back at the council station, the atmosphere was grim. Rixtar stood before the council, his scales dulled from exhaustion and stress. One of his arms was in a medical brace. "We underestimated their numbers and adaptability," he reported. "Our weapons are effective, but they learn too quickly. They replace losses faster than we can inflict them." Velroth was also present, though he stood away from the main floor. His exoskeleton showed scorch marks and cracks. He looked diminished. "We need new tactics," Rixtar continued. "New weapons. Time to rebuild and study their patterns." "We don't have time," another ambassador said. "The Vrask are already moving toward the next systems. At this rate, they'll reach the core worlds within a cycle." Taesung and Jiwoo sat in their section listening. Jiwoo's tablet showed reports from the Quiet Dawn. She had read Hyunwoo's analysis 3 times already. Velroth suddenly turned toward the human section. "This is your fault," he said, his voice carrying across the chamber. The room fell silent. "You sat and watched while we died," Velroth continued. "Your observer ship saw everything and did nothing. You could have helped. You chose not to." Taesung stood slowly. "Our ship offered tactical analysis during the battle. You refused to listen." "Tactical analysis?" Velroth's voice rose. "We needed ships. Weapons, warriors, not humans sitting safely in the distance taking notes while we bled. We were there in the capacity you approved," Taesung said calmly. "As observers, cowards," Velroth spat. "Your entire species are cowards who hide while others fight." Jiwoo's hand moved to her tablet, but Taesung subtly shook his head. She stayed quiet. Quinn 4 rose from its position. War Marshal Velroth, your anger is understandable but misplaced. Humanity stated from the beginning they would not fight. We accepted their terms. Then perhaps we should reconsider their membership in this council, Velroth said. What use is a species that refuses to defend the galaxy? Other voices joined in, some agreeing, others defending humanity. The chamber descended into argument. Taesung waited for silence. When it came, he spoke clearly. If the council wishes humanity to depart, we will do so. However, I would remind everyone that we never claimed to be warriors. We never offered military assistance. We offered observation and analysis. That offer stands. Keep your analysis, Velroth said bitterly. It's worth nothing without action. The meeting ended without resolution. As ambassadors left, Quinn 4 approached Taesung again. He is wrong to blame you, the crystalline being said. His pride led to defeat, not your absence. Nevertheless, beings died today, Taesung replied. That weighs on us. Enough to reconsider your position? Taesung looked at the empty council floor. Tell me, Quinn 4, if we showed you what human warfare looks like, what do you think would happen? I don't know. Neither do we. And that uncertainty keeps us silent. Later in their quarters, Jiwoo threw her tablet onto the table. Yunwoo identified the command nodes. If they had targeted those 7 ships first, they could have disrupted the entire Vrask formation. The battle would have gone differently. Would it have changed the outcome? Taesung asked. Maybe, probably. Jiwoo paced. We have weapons that could crack planets. We have tactics refined through 10,000 years of warfare. We could end this threat. At what cost? Does it matter if the alternative is extinction? Taesung pulled up a file on his own tablet. This is a report from our first contact with the Drakmir 80 years ago. We shared some historical military data as a gesture of openness. Do you know what happened? Jiwoo shook her head. They were horrified. They called us monsters. They proposed building a defensive perimeter around Earth to contain us. He closed the file. They were looking at World War II data. Conventional weapons only. They saw pictures of destroyed cities and called us demons. That was a long time ago. Not long enough. Taesung stood and looked out at the stars. If the situation becomes truly dire, we'll act. But until then, we wait. And if waiting costs lives, then that's on us, Taesung said heavily. But showing the galaxy what we're really capable of? That cost might be higher than anyone can imagine. In the darkness outside, the Vrask continued their advance, unaware that humanity was watching, calculating, and preparing for a possibility no one else could imagine. The council didn't meet the next day, or the day after. Too many species were dealing with what they had witnessed. Some ambassadors refused to leave their quarters. Others sent urgent messages back to their homeworlds, trying to explain what they had seen. On the 3rd day, the council finally reconvened. The atmosphere was different now. The fear of the Vrask had been replaced by something else. A nervous awareness that humanity had been sitting among them all along, quiet and polite, while hiding weapons that could slaughter enemies with mechanical efficiency. Taesung entered the chamber with Jiwoo and another human. This one was older, with white hair and deep lines in his face. He wore a simple gray uniform without any rank insignia. Council members, Taesung said. This is Yunho. He serves as keeper of the Human Combat Archive. Given recent events, we've decided to open portions of our military history for your review. Yunho stepped forward. He looked uncomfortable, like a man carrying a heavy burden. What you saw at Shinpung was a defensive action using modern human military doctrine. To understand why we fight that way, you need to understand where we came from. He activated a holographic display. Earth appeared again, but this time it showed different eras. Our recorded history spans 10,000 years, Yunho began. For most of that time, we were at war with ourselves. We had over 47,000 documented wars. We stopped counting smaller conflicts because there were too many to track. Numbers appeared on the display. Casualty figures from various conflicts. The numbers were staggering. In one war that lasted 6 years, over 70 million humans died. In another, 20 million died in just 4 years. These weren't accidents or natural disasters. We killed each other deliberately, efficiently, and in numbers that most species can't imagine. A Tidian ambassador made a sound of distress. Their species had never experienced warfare on such a scale. Yunho continued, his voice steady but sad. We developed weapons specifically to maximize death, devices that could kill millions in seconds, chemical weapons that poisoned entire regions, biological weapons that spread disease. We created weapons and then created rules against using them, and then broke those rules when we felt we had to. The display showed images, cities in ruins, landscapes scarred by bombardment, mass graves. Quinn 4's crystalline form pulsed with dark colors. You destroyed your own cities? Used weapons of mass destruction against your own kind? Multiple times, Yunho confirmed. We dropped atomic weapons on 2 cities in a single war. Each explosion killed over 100,000 people instantly. We did this to force an enemy to surrender. Several ambassadors were standing now, their translators carrying sounds of shock and horror. Velroth, who had been silent until now, spoke up. How are you even still alive? How did your species survive? Barely, Yunho said. We came very close to destroying ourselves several times. We built enough nuclear weapons to end all life on Earth multiple times over. We stood on the edge of extinction and only pulled back because we finally understood what we were capable of. And then you went to space, Rixtar said quietly. Carrying all that knowledge of death with you? Yes. Yunho changed the display. When we achieved faster-than-light travel, we made a choice. We would never use our full military capability against another species unless absolutely necessary. We quarantined our combat doctrine. We became quiet. We hoped no one would ever need to see what human warfare really looks like. Until Shinpung, Jiwoo added. The display changed again, showing the recent battle. Yunho narrated what had happened, explaining each weapon system and tactic. The council members listened with growing unease. The kinetic kill vehicles are based on weapons we theorized during our early space age, Yunho explained. Metal rods dropped from orbit using gravity and velocity as their only power source. We call them rods from God. They can destroy hardened bunkers or ships with pure kinetic force. The area denial munitions are adapted from naval mines we used in ocean warfare. We deployed millions of them, creating a kill zone that enemy ships couldn't pass through safely. The hunter drones use artificial intelligence to identify and eliminate targets autonomously. They're smart enough to adapt to enemy tactics in real time. Quinn 4 interrupted, its voice almost a whisper. These are your defensive weapons? These are our most basic military tools, Yunho corrected. We have much worse. Show us, Velroth said. He looked shaken but determined. If we're to understand what we're dealing with, show us everything. Yunho looked at Taesung, who nodded reluctantly. Very well. Yunho pulled up more files. These are classified systems we've never deployed against other species. We're showing you this so you understand why we stayed silent. The display showed a weapon system called a planet cracker. It was designed to destabilize a planet's core through resonance bombardment. We developed this during our colonial expansion in case we needed to deny resources to enemies. It can make a world uninhabitable within hours. Another system appeared. This one used engineered viruses. Biological warfare was banned on Earth centuries ago, but we maintained the knowledge. We can create pathogens tailored to specific species genetics. We never would, but we could. More and more weapons appeared on the display, each one more horrifying than the last. Weapons designed to poison atmospheres. Weapons that could cause stars to go nova. Weapons that existed purely to kill as efficiently as possible. The council chamber was silent except for Yunho's voice explaining each nightmare. Finally, he stopped. This is why we stayed quiet. This is what we wanted to protect you from knowing about us. A long silence followed. Then Jiwoo stood. We're receiving reports from multiple fronts. The Vrask are responding to what happened at Shinpung. They're pulling forces back and regrouping. They're afraid, Dayun's voice came through, transmitted from the quiet dawn. Our analysis shows the Vrask are exhibiting defensive behaviors for the first time since they appeared. One battle scared them? Rixtar asked. One battle showed them what humans can do, Jiwoo replied. They're a hive mind. Every Vrask unit now knows what happened at Shinpung. They know humans are different from other species. The main display changed, showing live feed from multiple systems. Human ships were deploying across the galaxy, moving into position. Admiral Bora's hologram appeared. Ambassador Taesung, the 2nd and 5th fleets are now operational. We're establishing a defensive perimeter around coalition space. Any Vrask forces that enter this zone will be eliminated. Rules of engagement? Taesung asked. Standard human military doctrine, Bora replied. We identify Vrask vessels. We give them one chance to retreat. If they don't, we destroy them completely. Admiral? Quinn 4 spoke up, its voice uncertain. What if they surrender? Bora was quiet for a moment. The Vrask don't surrender. They don't negotiate. They only consume. But if any species shows signs of surrender, we'll accept it. We're not monsters, aren't you? Velroth asked. It wasn't an accusation anymore. It was a genuine question. Bora looked at him through the hologram. We're what happens when a species learns to wage total war and then chooses not to. We're what happens when monsters decide to be guardians instead. Make of that what you will. Over the next week, human fleets engaged Vrask forces in 16 different systems. Each battle followed the same pattern. Human ships would arrive, deliver a warning, then methodically destroy every Vrask vessel that didn't retreat. The galaxy watched through sensor feeds and combat recordings. They saw human weapons that didn't rely on energy shields or armor. They saw tactics that prioritized efficiency over honor. They saw a species that fought like machines without rage or passion, just cold calculation. And they saw results. The Vrask advance stopped. Then it reversed. Captain Jamin commanded the warship Remember Verdun. His ship led the assault on a major Vrask staging area. The battle was broadcast live to the Council. Jamin's voice was calm as he coordinated his fleet. Target the biofactories first. Destroy their ability to build new ships, then work outward. The human ships moved like a school of fish, perfectly coordinated. They targeted structural weak points, exploited gaps in Vrask formations, and eliminated threats with minimal wasted ammunition. When a Vrask bioship tried to ram Jamin's vessel, point defense systems shredded it before it got close. When the Vrask tried to overwhelm with numbers, the humans deployed area weapons that cleared entire sections of space. In 4 hours, the staging area was destroyed. Every Vrask ship, every biofactory, every resource depot, nothing remained. Jamin reported back to Bora. Sector clear. No survivors. Moving to next target. No survivors. Quinn 4 repeated quietly in the council chamber. They don't take prisoners. The Vrask can't be imprisoned, Jiwoo explained. They're a hive mind. Every individual is part of the whole. You can't negotiate with them or rehabilitate them. You can only eliminate the threat completely. And you've done this before, Rikstar said. Haven't you? To other species? No, Taesung said firmly. We've never needed to. The Vrask are the first existential threat that forced us to show our capabilities. But yes, we're prepared to do this. We've always been prepared. That's what we tried to tell you. Velroth, who had been watching everything in silence, finally spoke. You're winning. In a week, you've accomplished. 3 weeks later, the war was over. The human fleets had systematically dismantled the Vrask swarm. They tracked every bioship, every hive cluster, every staging area. They gave warnings that were ignored. Then they eliminated targets with mechanical precision. The final battle happened in the Vrask home system. 7 human battle groups surrounded the core hive world. Admiral Bora personally commanded the operation. The council watched through live feeds. Many had protested when they learned humans planned to attack the homeworld itself. But Bora had been clear. Leaving any Vrask presence intact meant they would rebuild and attack again. Total elimination was the only solution. The battle lasted 12 hours. Human weapons cracked the hive world's defenses. They destroyed the biofactories that had produced millions of Vrask ships. They sterilized the breeding grounds. They eliminated every trace of the Vrask swarm's ability to wage war. When it ended, the Vrask were extinct. Now the council gathered once more. The atmosphere was complicated. Relief mixed with discomfort. Gratitude mixed with fear. They were safe, but they had learned something about humanity that couldn't be unlearned. Taesung stood before them. He looked tired. The past weeks had aged him visibly. The Vrask threat no longer exists, he reported formally. Human military forces are beginning withdrawal to our space. We expect complete withdrawal within 1 month. Rikstar stood, moving more easily now that his injuries had healed. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I want to thank humanity for saving us. Without your intervention, the Vrask would have destroyed our civilizations. Applause followed. Not enthusiastic, but genuine. Species that had criticized human silence now owed their existence to human violence. Quinn 4 rose. Its crystalline form had lost some of its brightness, as if what it had witnessed had dimmed its inner light. Ambassador Tae-sung, I have a question. The methods you used against the Vrask were effective, but disturbing. The complete elimination of a species, the weapons that could destroy worlds. Do you regret what you've done? Tae-sung considered carefully. Regret is complicated. We regret that it was necessary. We regret that others had to see what we're capable of, but we don't regret protecting ourselves and our allies. The Vrask gave us no choice. You could have shown mercy, a Tidian ambassador said quietly. To what end? Bora's hologram appeared. She had been listening. The Vrask don't understand mercy. They don't negotiate or surrender. They consume and multiply. Showing mercy would have meant they'd return stronger. We eliminated the threat completely because that was the only way to ensure safety. And if another threat appears? Velroth asked. He had been very quiet since the war ended. Will humanity respond the same way? That depends on the threat, Bora replied. We don't want to fight. We never wanted to fight. But if our territory or our allies are threatened with extinction, yes, we'll respond the same way. Tae-sung stepped forward. I want to explain something about human philosophy. We learn to be peaceful by mastering violence. We understand war better than any species in this galaxy, because we practiced it on ourselves for millennia. That understanding taught us how terrible war really is. He gestured to the displays showing human ships withdrawing from various systems. We stay silent because we remember what noise sounds like. We hide our capabilities because we know how others react when they see them, and we became part of this council not to show our strength, but to find a place where we might never need to use it. You scared us, Quinfor said simply. I know, Tae-sung replied. That's why we tried so hard to avoid this. But now you've seen the truth. The question is, what do we do with that knowledge? Rickstar spoke up. The council needs to discuss this matter. With respect, Ambassador, would you and Admiral Bora excuse us for a private session? Tae-sung nodded. He and Jiwoo left the chamber. Bora's hologram vanished. The debate that followed lasted 6 hours. Species argued about humanity's place in the galaxy. Some wanted humans expelled immediately, citing them as too dangerous. Others argued that humanity had saved them and deserved gratitude. Still others suggested building defensive networks specifically to contain human expansion. Finally, Quinfor proposed a different approach. We cannot change what humanity is, the crystalline being said. They are warriors who learned peace. They are capable of terrible things but choose restraint. Perhaps instead of fearing them, we should understand why they made the choices they did. You want us to accept species that can extinct others on purpose? A Drakmir representative asked. I want us to accept that they already did that to save us, Quinfor replied. And more importantly, I want us to understand that they didn't want to. Did you see Ambassador Tae-sung's face? Did you hear the sadness in Admiral Bora's voice? They're not proud of what they did. They're burdened by it. The debate continued, but slowly opinion shifted. By the end, the council reached a decision. Tae-sung was called back. He stood before them, waiting. Rickstar spoke for the council. Humanity will remain a member of the Galactic Council. However, we request that certain protocols be established. Your combat logs will remain classified, but you will maintain a military liaison to coordinate with coalition defense planning. You will also establish a defensive perimeter that other species can request protection within, should future threats arise. You want us to be guardians, Tae-sung said slowly. We want you to be what you already are, Quinfor clarified. Warriors who choose peace. Protectors who know the cost of violence. We need you at the edge of our civilization, watching for threats, but we also need you to stay silent unless absolutely necessary. So nothing changes, Jiwoo murmured. Everything changes, Rickstar corrected. Now we understand why you're silent. Now we know what you're protecting us from. That understanding matters. Tae-sung looked at the assembled species. Fear, gratitude, respect, and unease all mixed in their expressions. The human delegation accepts these terms. We'll withdraw our fleets and maintain our borders. Our offer of tactical analysis remains available. And if another existential threat appears, we'll respond as necessary. That's what concerns some of us, a Tidian admitted. How do we know you won't decide we're a threat someday? Bora's hologram reappeared. You have our word, but more than that, you have our history. We fought ourselves for 10,000 years and finally chose peace. We've spent 200 years avoiding conflict with other species. Our actions speak louder than promises. Besides, Tae-sung added, If we wanted to conquer the galaxy, we could have done it already. We have the weapons. We have the doctrine. What we don't have is the desire. We want to live quietly, trade fairly, and never give anyone a reason to see what we showed you these past weeks. The council session ended formally. As ambassadors filed out, Quinn 4 approached the human delegation one more time. May I ask you something personal? The crystalline being said. Of course, Taesung replied. Do you sleep well at night, knowing what your species can do? Taesung was quiet for a long moment. No, none of us do. The combat archive keepers like Yunho carry the worst burden. They maintain records of every terrible thing humanity has done. Every weapon we've built, every war we've fought. They remember so the rest of us can try to forget. That sounds like a terrible responsibility. It is, Taesung agreed. But it's necessary. Someone has to remember what we're capable of. Someone has to guard those doors and make sure they only open when absolutely necessary. That's the price of being human. Later in their private quarters, Jiwoo reviewed the withdrawal orders. Human fleets were already departing from various systems. They moved quietly, efficiently, disappearing back into their own space like ghosts returning to shadows. Do you think they'll ever really trust us? She asked. Dahyun, who had joined them from the quiet dawn, shook her head. No, and maybe that's good. Trust can make people careless. Respect mixed with caution keeps everyone alert. But they know about us now, Jiwoo continued. The secret's out. They've seen what we can do. They've seen some of what we can do, Taesung corrected. The deep archives remain sealed. The truly frightening weapons stayed locked away. If they knew everything, they wouldn't just be cautious. They'd be terrified. Will it always be like this? Dahyun asked. Humanity sitting at the edge, quiet and careful, hoping no one gives us a reason to fight? I hope so, Taesung said. The alternative is showing the galaxy what we become when we stop holding back. What we showed them was restraint. If they ever see us without restraint, without rules of engagement, without any limits, he trailed off. That's why we stay silent, Jiwoo finished. That's why we stay silent, Taesung agreed. Across the galaxy, human ships returned to their quarantine zone. They took up positions along the borders, watching quietly. The Vrask were gone, but space was vast. Other threats might appear someday, and when they did, humanity would be ready. Admiral Bora stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the stars. Her crew worked around her, processing after-action reports and maintaining systems. The war was over, but the burden remained. A junior officer approached. Admiral, all fleets have reported successful withdrawal. We're back to standard patrol patterns. Good, Bora said. Maintain communications monitoring. If anything unusual appears, I want to know immediately. Yes, ma'am. The officer hesitated. Admiral,